Hi kids, I'm here with your Bible story. Our last story that we read was where God had told Moses, to build the tent and how to build it and stuff so they could go in and have a church there when they were out in the desert trying to find their promised land that God had promised them, because the tent can be, taken down and moved with you when you move. So that was what we read last time. So tonight's story is going to be called Two Spies Against 10. And as always, we'll start off with a Bible verse. Move this over a little bit here. And our Bible verse tonight is going to be Numbers chapter 14, verse 8. And it says, "If the Lord delight in us, then he will bring us into this land, and give it to us, a land which floweth with milk and honey." And that's the land of Canaan, the promised land that God promised to Moses and the Israelites when he had them freed from Egypt, from being slaves. So let's go ahead and begin with the story. After the tabernacle, which is the tent of worship, the new house of worship was finished, the pillar of cloud that stayed over it moved one day, which was God. The Israelites knew that the time had come for them to leave Mount Sinai and continue on their journey to the land God had promised them. For several months they traveled, walking for a few days, then camping and resting for a while, gradually coming closer and closer to the border between the desert and the promised land. At last they pitched camp at Kadesh Barnea, right on the border of Canaan. Now the land of Canaan was not empty and simply waiting for the Israelites to move in. People were living there who had been there for many years and had built fine cities. God suggested that Moses select some men to go over into Canaan and see what it was really like, when they could return and tell the other Israelites about it. This seemed better than marching right into it, knowing not what to expect. Moses chose a leader from each of the 12 tribes to go into Canaan. He told them to be sure and remember the king of the land that they found there, the food that could be grown, the kind of people living there, and the cities they had built. In the fall of the year, just as the grapes were ripening, the men left on their scouting trip. For 40 days they walked all over the land of Canaan, noticing the things that Moses had mentioned. Before they came back to their camp again, they cut a cluster of grapes that was so large it had to be carried between 2 men on a pole. They also brought back some figs and pomegranates, special fruit grown in that land. When the men returned, all the people gathered to hear what they had learned. The men said, "This is as good a land as God told us it would be. See these grapes that we gathered in the vineyards? But the people who live there are stronger than we are, and the cities are so protected that we could never capture them." Caleb, one of the spies, broke in, "The land is wonderful, as you have said, and with the help of God, I know that we could take it. Let us get ready to go at once." But all the other scouts except Joshua disagreed. "No," they said, "there is no use to try to make war on those people. They are so big they make us look like tiny grasshoppers." This message made the people scared. They too were afraid that they could not take the land. They did not believe that God was strong enough to help them overcome any enemy. All night they complained to Moses and Aaron. "Why did we ever leave Egypt?" some asked. God brought us into the wilderness only to let us die here. Let us choose another leader who will take us back to Egypt." They were always testing God, always. Joshua and Caleb stood before the people and did everything they could to persuade them to go on into the new land. But the people became so angry with them that they wanted to kill them. Just then the glory of the Lord, which stayed in the tabernacle within the Holy of Holies, shone from the tabernacle so that everyone could see it. God was so disappointed in the people that he wanted to leave them. But because Moses prayed for them and begged God to forgive him, God changed his mind and forgave them. But God did not let the people go unpunished. The 10 spies who had been afraid were killed. All of the other people who were over 20 years old were told that they would never get to go into the promised land of Canaan. They would have to stay in the wilderness another 40 years, 1 year for each day the scouts spent in Canaan, until their children grew up in their place. Of the adults then living, only Joshua and Caleb, the faithful spies, would live to enter the land of Canaan. God knew that Moses could teach the children as they grew up to love and trust him more than their parents had, and that he could also train them for war. They would never remember the life of slavery in Egypt that had made their parents so weak and unsure. Some of the people decided to march upon the land of Canaan anyway, but the Lord did not go with them, and they were killed in battle. The others turned toward the desert again, and there they stayed for 40 years, just like God had said, because they did not trust in God to do what God said he would do for them, to take them into the land of Canaan and take over the land. So that's where we're going to stop today with your Bible story. And our next story will be An Animal Speaks. But tonight's story was 2 Spies Against 10. So I hope you guys enjoyed tonight's Bible story. I hope you guys learned something about the Bible from it. And I hope you guys have a great weekend. Bye guys. God bless.